So for the Ring magazine, delighted today to be joined with Frank Smith and a new Netflix star you are now. Yeah, look, a lot's happened, I guess, in the past couple of days. But first things first, how's things? How are you?
Good, mate. Good. With all the fame, I had to escape England quite quickly, so I've actually come to Spain for a few days away. When it all kicked off, it was just too much to handle. There was paps at the doors, you know,
I mean,
and I
what was
just
the
had to
airport
get
like?
had to get out.
Getting mobbed at the
Honestly, that
airport and stuff, like.
that I got to be honest, the EasyJet flight at 4:45 or 5:45 from Gatwick, I had to go on with a hat. It wasn't easy. Row seven, just trying to mingle in, mate.
Yeah, God, I feel sorry for you, mate. But actually, in all seriousness, I've watched a few episodes of the documentary. It's good, it's nice to show, I guess, that different side that people don't see behind the scenes.
Yeah, 100%. But that's what makes these programs so good. I've seen what they've done with Drive to Survive, what they've done with Full Swing. And for us, it was always about, it was about the what it can do for the brand. I mean, Drive to Survive ultimately saved Formula One.
Mhm.
Or not saved, maybe is a bit extreme, but
Yeah.
created a whole new audience for it, created a whole new market really in the US for Formula One as well. So, for us, it was that was the key. And everyone's very interested in what goes on behind the curtains because you don't see it. I haven't actually watched the final episodes.
Mhm.
So I'm getting sent things that I haven't actually seen. So I'll have to watch it at some point in the next few days.
Yeah, as I say, and I'm right in Eddie saying it was almost like your idea to, I guess, come up with this and pitch this idea for the documentary. But I guess, yeah, I know you touched on there about the behind the scenes, but how important is it, I guess, to get them new eyes on? As you see, it's second in trending, I'm pretty sure, on Netflix in the UK at the moment. So how important, I guess, is it getting that new idea and that new audience, as you see with Drive to Survive? There's so many more F1 fans now as well.
Yeah, it's huge, and it's huge for the people we represent. As big as our businesses are across the sports, it's also the athletes we represent across all of the sports we're involved in, and this can only help build their profiles and take them to a whole new level as well. You don't have to. We all know Netflix subscriber base is absolutely huge on a global scale, and what it does when they create these bits of programming, it completely changes sport. So for me, that was the focus. That's why I pushed very hard for it. It originally started just as a boxing idea that we do it across boxing. And then as we spent more time with Netflix discussing the opportunity, they looked at the whole group and like darts, snooker, nine ball pool and said, there's such a huge story to be told here about what you've done as a group, as a business, that we should create it as, across the board. And it's quite amazing when you realize actually this company that's really still a family business, a small group of people, 130, 140 people, and we're putting on 600 odd event days a year around the world across multiple sports. So yeah, it's good, and I'm happy with the way it's come out. And I always said if it flopped, it would have been my idea, and
Yeah.
if it was a success, it would have been Eddie's. So I've got to just get it out there as much as possible that it was mine.
Can we expect season two? I know it's a bit early to say, but like, has there been sort of any? I don't know how it works, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's been discussions about it. Look, a lot of it's down to the success, and I think the success as we've seen, it's number two. Jude Law's just pipping us to the post, but over the weekend, I think the sports fans will come in and nick that number one spot. So it's all down to the success. But I think from what I'm seeing, people like it, and people want to see more of it.
Yeah, look, and we'll touch on Wednesday as well. Obviously had a press conference with Chris Eubank Jr. against Conor Benn. Look, when you get these two in the room, and you get Eddie in the room as well, you never know what you're going to expect. And that happened again on Wednesday. Before we, I guess, dissect what was said and everything that went into it, what was your thoughts on the press conference on Wednesday?
Yeah, look, I got to be honest. I think Connor held himself very well in there. And I think you're seeing a different Conor Benn this time around. Chris is Chris. Chris's whole life is about spinning narrative. It's what he does day in, day out. But I think you're getting a different reaction from Conor this time. Conor's a very emotional character. Like we've always, you only have to look at him to know that. And that can be a positive, a negative. And I think from the first fight, he's going to take a lot of improvements into the second fight. You've got to imagine that he's never been in an event of that magnitude. Chris hasn't either, but he's been in bigger events up until that time. And there was so much pressure really on Conor of years and years of everything that had gone on. You were thinking it was 3 or 4 years. So I think you're seeing a different Conor Benn. But the truth is when you bring these people together, Chris, Conor, Eddie, everyone involved, it's always going to create spice. You know, it was a great press conference in many ways.
Mhm.
Um, you know, so yeah, I'm not really surprised to be honest. And look, it was always going to follow through, wasn't it? How
Mhm.
big the first fight was, it's only going to carry on into this one.
Mhm. Do you think Conor knows his place now in term?
I think there was, like I say, there was so much built up for years and years and years. And Connor's still young, relatively young, you know, and it was the biggest moment of his career. And he's now experienced that. So he's a lot more chilled with it. And I spoke to him yesterday as well. And I said, you could tell a huge difference, you know, and I think he'll take that into the fight as well.
Mhm. Well, let's sort of touch on what on a lot of the stuff that Eubank said. He went on a long, I guess you can say, rant of accusing the British boxer Robert Smith of a lot of things, of being in the back pockets of Matchroom. Obviously, the one that struck out to a lot of people was the ambulance getting stopped for 20 minutes, the sabotage weigh-in as well, which I was there and you was there for as well. Yeah, I guess that for those accusations towards Matchroom boxing, what were your thoughts on them as a whole?
Look, they'll have to be dealt with. You know, you can't in life just say things and make things up and think you can just do what you want with no sort of nothing that comes from it. And I'm all for fighters selling themselves, building themselves, but it has to be done in the right way. And you can't just tell lies or fabrications
Mhm.
to bring someone down. And that's what it is. And it will have to be dealt with in a certain way.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like, oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
no, go, no, go on, go on, go on. Sorry, I was only going to add on.
No, I just think, I think it's, look, it's doubly frustrating for me because it's the business angle and it's also a personal angle,
Yeah.
you know? So it makes it even harder for me as an individual, both at work and in my personal life,
Mhm.
you know, because what you're basically saying, and he said in an interview, Frank Smith, amongst a load of names, is one of my enemies. And it was one of those that stopped the ambulance. So you're basically saying, I tried to kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is
Yeah. Yeah.
what you're basically insinuating.
Yeah.
So, you know, for me, I've been through a lot with this family as well. So for me personally, it's like, whoa, you know,
Mhm.
there's one thing because there's one thing from a work perspective, there's one thing from a personal perspective, and I think look, Chris doesn't know when he takes it too far. Chris has, in my opinion, no respect
Mhm.
for anything or anyone. All he cares about is himself.
Yeah.
You know, you, like I say, you can't go through life thinking you can just get away with saying what you want, as he's found time and time again.
Yeah, what was the deal with the ambulance, I guess, like especially on fight night? I know like I was there and I know there was like crazy traffic outside the arena, but the suggestion to say it that people were stopping him, how dangerous is it to try and say these things like because we've seen it before, you can only look at especially both families and the tragedy that they've had through
Mm.
boxing. So to sort of come out and make them accusations, how dangerous is it with them added tones as well?
100%. And what's amazing is, you know, people like Boxer and Ben Shalom want to act as promoters and we're the co-promoter of the show. They were on the, you know, they were a contractual party to
Mhm.
the show. They were a contractual party to the venue. But funnily enough, they had nothing to do with the event and, you know, they weren't brought up at all,
Yeah.
you know. And I'm not suggesting, by the way, they had any involvement.
Mhm.
What I'm suggesting is no one had any involvement with, as in, you know, can things be improved next time? Yes, and we've dealt with that. But it wasn't anyone stood there going, well, don't let him out.
Mhm.
Again, it goes back to the point. What he's saying is that we were basically standing there saying, don't let him out.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Crazy. Yeah.
You know, it's an insane thing to say. We've been on, as you said, the family have been on. I've been involved in boxing a long time, and we've been involved in shows where fighters have passed away.
Mm.
And I can't tell you, like, our job, whatever you think of us, you know, whether you like us, whether you like the way we are, we're humans, right?
Mm. Mhm.
As we all are. So when you see things like we've seen in the sport, of course you want the sport to be as safe as possible. You know, the British Boxing Board of Control as well. You know, you can think they do stuff wrong, and don't get me wrong, I've thought I don't agree with every decision they've made. Just like you might not, the next person might not. You can't appease everyone. You can't keep everyone happy. But I think when it comes to sit down to the medical, the safety of the sport, the BBFC are unrivaled in what they do, right?
Yeah.
When it comes down to other decisions, can we all disagree? Sure, we can.
Yeah.
You know, that's life. You're going to disagree with things that people do. But to also say what he said about the British Boxing Board of Control is crazy. That Robert Smith, the board have made decisions that are good for us. Yes, they've made decisions that are bad for us.
Mm.
That's life, like everything in life, and there's no favor to anyone.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's disappointing. And people say about, I've seen comments, oh, Eddie's turning into bitter or suing. You can't just expect someone to sit there and go, yeah, we'll accept that a guy's basically said we tried to kill him,
Mhm.
which is just factually incorrect. And, you know, it's just wild, really. And I think for the most part, people see that. And I think really Chris's mask slipped
Mhm.
in that press conference because he doesn't know when he takes it too far.
Mhm. Will you look to take legal action then, I assume?
I mean, look, that will go on between, we've got lawyers that work for us. Let's let that go on in the background. But again, you can't. All I'm saying is you can't get away with just
Yeah.
saying what you want and fabricating things to bring other people down.
Mhm.
If you say, in my opinion, I don't like this person. In my opinion, this person's a scumbag. Just like he said before, did we take legal action? No,
No.
because that's an opinion. You can think I'm a scumbag. Fine. You don't have to. I don't have to agree with you. You don't have to agree with him. You can say that. Unfortunately, that's life we live in. I
Mhm.
can think he's a scumbag. Have I said it? No.
Mhm.
But you can't just bare-face lie
Mhm.
and make up complete and utter shit. It's like the weigh-in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or when I came to the weigh-in, there was loads of
Hour,
people
it
in
was an
there, and
hour late.
he
Yeah.
was an hour late, and there was loads of people in there, and there was all their team in there. Yeah, but when Conor weighed in, he had no problem with multiple people from Boxer being in the room
Exactly.
because we're not princesses.
Yeah.
Like, grow up. You were late. You were unprofessional because you've got the most unprofessional team in the world around you. And the only professional person in that room was John Wishusen, who Boxer are now suing, who was the most loyal person to the Eubank family over the last 35 years.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about loyalty, morals, doing the right thing, look at your own team. Don't worry about us.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And also that was said as well. Another talking point for the press conference was, it's always this thing, especially at the last few, that Eubank won't let Eddie Hearn speak. And
Mm.
Eddie tried to pay his respect to Ricky Hatton, and Eubank didn't let him. That caused a lot of criticism from you from towards Eubank side. I think you would you echo, guess, the criticism for Eubank for not letting Eddie pay his respect.
Yeah, because as I said, he has no respect.
Mm,
He
yeah.
doesn't care about anyone but himself,
Mm, mhm,
and look, for anyone up on that table to add something about Ricky Hatton, like he's a legend of the sport. And yes, we had the tribute. There was the tribute to him, of course. But of course, people are going to want to say something as well.
mm,
It's just natural.
yeah.
Ricky Hatton did so much for the sport of boxing. And forget even he was a boxer, he was just a nice bloke
Mm,
who no one, and I think a lot of people have said this. There's a lot of people in the world that some people like, some people dislike. You've never heard anyone say a bad word about Ricky Hatton, ever,
mhm.
because he's just a nice person, And when it came down to it, people wanted to be around him. So yes, it's disappointing, you know, and like Eddie always says that, whenever there's been situations,
Mhm.
he's always said things about.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've said what I think. I think it's disrespectful, as do a lot of other people. So yeah.
Yeah, and before I do let you go, there was one thing that after Ben Shalom said on TalkSport, he said that Eubank isn't committed to the rehydration clause for this fight. Is that true? Like, is there any truth to that?
No, but also the other thing to this whole rhetoric, this whole thing of like what the issues were.
Yeah,
The rehydration clause or second day weigh-in, he made easily
yeah,
in a coat, right?
mm,
As far I wasn't there, but that's what I mean.
yeah,
And by multiple pounds. It wasn't, if you were struggling, you would be 169 pounds and the optimal limit of what you could be, right?
yeah,
That's the reality. Well, you'd be 170, bang on.
mm,
That's just the truth. Because a professional, they'd be standing, they'd be drinking, they'd be checking, Really what the issue was he posted the way he makes weight,
yeah,
right? And his weight is 160 pounds.
mm,
Or is it, forget us, forget Conor being involved. He weighs 160 pounds. Ben Shalom's a complete and utter plonker, right? That's the honesty of
yeah,
it. And he's, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Why?
Completely and
Why did he say
utterly
that? Yeah.
clueless.
Why did he say that?
Because
Like,
because he's just an idiot. He's like, let's talk about the gloves. Their gloves
yeah, the horsehair
approved. You
gloves.
know,
Yeah.
when they said Eddie knew about it, no, the gloves approved in our contract were gloves approved by the British Boxing Board of Control. It's all fabrications. That's what was in our
But
contract that we signed.
but yes, because Matchroom recorded this in it, and obviously one like there was a film of there was video of the horsehair gloves. And I don't want to make like, but there was a writer saying that was the rules meeting missed or something like that by Eubank's team or whatever or something like
They turned up. They turned up, and the gloves were every pair of gloves that a boxer wears in the UK has to be approved. Forget what, again, I think you think, has to be approved by the British Boxing Board of Control. So say there's 200 pairs of gloves that are approved by the British Boxing Board of Control. You are allowed to wear those gloves. That's what our contract says. So again, the lies of Eddie knew that we weren't allowed horsehair gloves. No, we signed to wear gloves that are approved by the British Boxing Board of Control.
that.
You know, and it's not pure horsehair gloves. These are all a lot of gloves have horsehair in them of some sort, with mixed with foam, etc. Right? I'm not a glove maker, but if you speak to people who make gloves, you know, they'll tell. And gloves over the years have definitely improved. They've become safer, and hence why they have to be approved by the commission. But yeah, sorry, going back to the weight thing, he missed the 160 weight. The second day weigh-in, perfectly fine, right? He
Yeah.
missed the 160, and everyone when they posted the videos going, "This is disgusting. They made him make 160." He fights at 160.
Mm.
Like he fights at 160. Him.
Yeah.
No, no. And also this whole narrative, no one forced him to do anything.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm like, I have enough of. No one forced him to get in the ring and fight and sign a contract to fight, did they?
Yeah.
No,
No.
he wants to make a shit ton of money for a fight. Fair play to him. But just like me or you going to work gets harder the more money you make, for
Yeah.
the most part, right?
Yeah.
That's life.
Facts. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's just the world we live in. So
Yeah.
whether it's boxing, whether it's this, whether it's that, it gets harder.
Yeah.
He missed the weight. No one to blame but himself,
Yeah.
because he's not professional. He hasn't got a professional team around him.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, look, Frank, I know you got to get off, so I will let you go. But look, I appreciate you taking time to speak to me. Always good to catch up, and yeah, good to see the new Netflix fame coming through. And yeah, good to see that doing successful as well. So look, appreciate the time as
Cheers,
always.
mate.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheers.